Welcome to Keep It Local, a podcast of Local Media Association, where we talk with people across the news industry about sustainable revenue models and tools and services that help us get there. And today, I am delighted to be joined by Julie Foley with Second Street. How are you doing, Julie?
Hey, good. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me today.
Well, I'm excited about our topic. But first, when we talked about potentially doing this podcast, we talked about the fact that you're down in the Savannah area. And my family, we visited Savannah a little while back and stopped at a place called Huey's. I take it that's a pretty good place?
Yes, it's on River Street. It's very famous. They have really good beignets and awesome shrimp and grits too. Yeah.
Love the shrimp and grits and don't threaten me with a good time. I love cafe au lait also. It can get me a little hyper, but I loved it. And you told me that that is one of sort of like the best places to go in Savannah. And that leads us to our topic of the day. Back in the day, I worked in newspaper and we used to have best of sections where the subscribers would vote on best restaurant, best dentist, best local DJ, the gamut, and they would do really well. In fact, alternative weeklies, the Oklahoma Gazette here in Oklahoma City, used to do that all the time. But you tell me that this isn't just a newspaper thing, that the folks in broadcast ought to be doing it too.
Absolutely. Broadcast is really uniquely positioned to run successful best of programs, but we shouldn't let the print folks have all the fun and all the revenue. And there's room for broadcast, whether that's television or radio, in this best of space because you can make it uniquely your own. Like, for instance, in Savannah, Connect Savannah is a print publication that does a best of. It's an alternative publication. But there's also 3 or 4 other best of programs that run in Savannah that do really, really well. So there's no reason why broadcast can't get in with it into a best of program, especially when you have the reach daily, you have those strong on-air personalities, you have the social engagement, really do have a handle on social, more so than I think some of our print products do, and a built-in promotional inventory, both digitally, over the top or CTV, whatever you want to call it. And of course, in your core products too.
Right. Hey, something you mentioned there really struck me. You said some of these markets have multiple best ofs. So if you're a broadcast station, particularly maybe in a smaller market, if you see that your local newspaper already is dominant with the best of, that doesn't mean that you can't cut into that segment there.
Correct. Again, I say just do it as well because you can make it bigger, you can make it better, and you can make it your own. And that's really the key, is finding your personality when it comes to your best of program. I love when I see radio stations do this, especially because and of course the alternative weeklies and radio kind of have the same types of categories, because you can get kind of fun with it. Like in Savannah, it can be the cleanest bar bathroom, which if you're in Savannah and you're visiting Savannah and you're not sure and you're there and you're, having some libations, it's important to know that you shouldn't go right to some of these restrooms. That there's better options, maybe in Plant Riverside District, on the other end of River Street, the new end of River Street. You wouldn't know that unless you had that category. But you can really, again, use your personality of your brand to make it your own. And why should the print publication have the local revenue, all of that, when it comes to this program, or the advertiser relationships that are deepened, or the first party and zero party data that they're collecting when they're doing a program like this? The newsletter opt-ins alone is a reason to do this for your daily news, your breaking news, your weather news, and the ongoing engagement that you can drive with a program like this.
I can see many multiple ways that it works for both the audience, the customer, and the publication. But let's say I'm a publication and we're already doing a million things and I might feel a little overwhelmed. Can you walk me through about how a station would even get started?
Right. Well, yeah. So this is a revenue engine. And so setting a goal for a best of program at your station should be big enough to matter. That's first and foremost, because you already, like you just said, you have a million things on your plate. So setting a goal to do this needs to be a goal that's big enough to matter. That's a quote that I am actually stealing from a friend from Beth Mann from WKDZ in Cadiz, Kentucky. She's an FM radio affiliate. She's a wonderful person. And if you've ever heard her talk, you would just fall in love with her. But she said this when she started this program years ago, 12 years ago. She said, we started a program. We started this that it was an unheard of for a radio station to do a best of. And Cadiz is not a big town in Kentucky. But she said, we had to set this goal that was big enough to matter because we have a million things that we have to do. So that's the first thing to think of it. It's a revenue engine and it is big enough to matter. But also, you can't think of it as another thing that you have to do and it's a one-time thing. Like we're just going to sell this thing this 1 month and then we're going to go on to the next thing. That's when we talk about that. When I talk to my print partners, I say that's special section mindset. We don't want that. We want this to be a multi-month revenue initiative. So you identify categories, like I said before, that reflect your audience, whether that's food or health or family or entertainment or home services. And then you build in a 3-phase ballot, a nomination phase that creates a lot of engagement. People are writing in. A voting phase that drives a ton of data collection and a ton of traffic of people voting on the top 5, top 10 nominees. And then the winners, where a ton of the revenue comes from, where you have sponsored content that lives beyond the winner announcement, promotional extensions that live beyond the announcement online or on air, that can live throughout the year on your site. We have partners that are doing a really good job of this. WMBF in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina is a good example of having a hero page set up just for their best of the Grand Strand and having their promotional videos of their winners in the studio talking about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm thinking about it in terms of, like, seasonality. If you have a college football team in your market, there could be a whole best of around that, a whole best of around high school sports and traditions, places to go, pizzerias, family dinners, all sorts of things.
Well, I love college football. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Oh my gosh. And high school sports, prep sports, absolutely. WRAL has exactly what you're saying. They have a high school athlete of the week, athlete of the month, and then they have a program at the end and they use a ballot tool for that. And they have a sponsor for that and they have an event for that. And they have a newsletter that's sprung out of the engagement they got from doing this promotion, from doing this contest. They grew a newsletter for their, call it high school OT or high school overtime. And they grew a newsletter from it. That's how lucrative these programs can be, these best of programs, these ballot programs, whether it's a niche ballot like high school sports or college, what's the best stadium food at, Allen E. Paulson Stadium in Statesboro, Georgia. Or if it's, and they have shrimp at that stadium. That's my stadium. And we do have shrimp on the menu and it's really good. Or it's a traditional best of, but people are actually growing newsletter lists, which we know we need to grow and that we need to own from doing these programs.
I have, over the years, in my previous capacity in local TV news, we looked to RAL as kind of a big brother. So I got really familiar with their high school OT. It's really impressive. And what you're describing, though, isn't just a revenue engine, but I think it's more like a full activation. It's not just a best of, it's all the things that can spring from a best of.
Correct. It's also what I really love about this, and I totally geek out on best ofs because it has so many different spokes to the wheel of it. But when you are in that nomination phase or in that voting phase, you have a lot of local business owners that are wanting to see their name in lights, so to speak, right? And so they're reaching out. How do I get on the ballot? How do I get nominated? You have a unique opportunity that is, I liken to maybe what it used to be like in the 90s. I didn't work for newspapers in the 90s. It was the 2000s. It wasn't too far away from the 90s. But if anybody's listening that did, if you remember the days when you used to pick up the phone and just take orders, and there was a lot less of this hoofing it onto the street and begging people to advertise, right? Because you just literally were order takers. That's kind of what best of is. That is what it feels like. So there's not only this opportunity to generate revenue and to generate audience growth and newsletter growth, but also a lead list for you, a lead list of local businesses that have raised their hand and said, I'm interested in this, and have opted in. Yes, I'm an advertiser and I'd love to hear more about how I can get my name. You can start to build that list. I love talking about not just this is the categories and this is what it should look like and this is what the name should be and this is what the sales package is, but how you market it to your B2B audience as well as your B2C audience. It's a year-round initiative that grows everything you do, really.
And it's really mostly about what you put into it, you will get out of it.
True.
You at the very beginning, we talked about this being an initiative that would be big enough to matter because stations are overwhelmed. We're all overwhelmed. So let's talk about the ROI here. We've talked about this before, and some of these packages can bring in six figures.
Yes,
Is it even for broadcast?
absolutely, yes. Well, I talked about WMBF. That's one example that I can give you is a six-figure revenue. We actually have a case study on lab.secondstreet.com that I'll send you the link for, Ryan. Again, this is a 97 DMA market. So we're not talking about a large market here. And they generated in 2024 $282,000 in revenue. That was a 14% year-over-year growth from 2023. They've grown again in 25. We're getting their story because we have our awards coming up. We award our partners every year who did the best. They were our winner.
So you have a best of the best of.
We do. We do. We have a best of the best of all of our partners, and one of our categories is best of in small, medium, and large market. And I'm seeing more and more. It used to be just inundated with just all print. And then we started to see Leighton Broadcasting, Allen Media, Gray Television, WRAL's independently owned, right? But all of these ones coming in, Federated, Fort Wayne, WKDZ, all coming in and doing these best ofs. And I'm like, wow, this is really exciting that they're taking the lessons from, what newspaper did and the best practices that we've been talking about for years and are starting to use it to sell it in their markets. And not just the revenue, but again, it's great to have almost $300,000 of revenue for this program, but they also got 3,500 newsletter opt-ins for their daily newsletter. That is really important. They sell that newsletter. That newsletter is their one-to-one communication with people in their community, and that 3,500 new opt-ins for that newsletter is money to them. And that's just that 1 year. They grow that newsletter every single year that they do this.
That's really impressive. You also talked about opportunities to go beyond sponsorship. Were there other things beyond like B2B leads and growing leads lists? Like what could a station do with that?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's more tools now than there were. I wish that I had these tools when I was working in local media. But we have recently, there's actually some new tools that I think are really exciting, especially for broadcast, because you have so many things that you're doing. You do want to make it big enough to matter, but also you have sales teams that are shrinking too. It might not be that you had the same number of sales team members that you had 18 months ago that you do today. So knowing that, there are some things that you could be doing that you should be doing to grow revenue kind of in your sleep or as a sales team member that you don't have to pay a commission for, perhaps. And that's self-serve e-commerce. So there are different ways that you can do this. Within Second Street, we've partnered with Stripe. It's free to use Stripe. It doesn't cost anything to use Stripe. It doesn't cost anything additionally to have Stripe integration with the Second Street ballot tool. But you can, as a user, as a local business owner, I can upgrade my listing so I can have a featured listing. I can add in my logos. I can purchase, packages. I can be a category sponsor, and I can do all that from my phone or from my computer at home at midnight when I've finally shut down my shop and I have time to look at it. And I can add in upload my own images. And then, Ryan, you go to work tomorrow morning and you fire up the computer and you're like, holy cow, we made a few sales overnight. And it's already in the ballot. It's already been trafficked and it's there. And you didn't have to do anything except activate it. So that's one thing that I think will be really exciting. We have a partner that has really taken a hold of this e-commerce, and he has told us that just by having e-commerce turned on, that 40% of the people that have purchased self-serve ballot ads for his program. 40% of the people that have bought online are brand new to him, that he's never worked with before. He's been running best of programs for years in his markets. He has really grown it. It's a huge deal for him. It's big enough to matter. He's all in. And he still isn't able to reach every single person because you just can't. Especially in a best of, you're thinking, gosh, even if you're thinking of Savannah, which isn't the biggest market, right? Myrtle Beach is not the biggest, but when you think about how many seafood restaurants, who has the best shrimp and grits? Oh God, there's like 50 that could be a contender for that. How can I, as a sales rep, go and talk to all those? I can't, and I shouldn't, because we should prospect, the ones that we can really hone in on. But that's where this comes in. Another thing that's really exciting is something that's brand new that I cannot wait for folks to start using, which is text to vote. So you can also, of course, traditionally on your phone or on your device, vote, register, opt in, vote across a bunch of different categories. But you could also now have the opportunity with higher engagement and mobile participation is to text a keyword, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to vote for Ryan's Steakhouse for, best happy hour specials or something. Right. So that's going to be really exciting. And what's more exciting about just the activation of mobile users that are traditionally not logging in and, voting in 10 different categories, people that are just kind of casually scanning a QR code that immediately pulls up a text that you can just hit submit. Love that. But also that you sell those keywords as a station to the advertisers as an upsell. So it's $250 to have a keyword in addition to your package that you might be buying. And then that's an opportunity to make an extra $50K if you just sell 200 different keywords. I mean, the possibilities for that really are
Yeah.
wonderful.
You know who does text to vote probably better than anybody? Dancing with the Stars.
I was gonna say American Idol, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's I'll watch as often as I can, but really it's my wife and daughter, and I'm familiar with who the celebrities are, and I'm like interested in one or two, but they will basically give me instructions. They'll say, Ryan, text this to whatever and use your 10. It's so easy.
Yeah. Yeah. And imagine you're like sitting in your chair getting your hair cut and your gal's up for, best hairdresser or whatever it might be. Scan a QR code, right? And it immediately pulls up a text and all you have to hit is send. And that's a vote for her.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then don't forget to vote for her online as well, right?
Right.
Because that's another vote. But you can do that, every day, every round, whatever. You can go in and you can hit that button and vote for her every day via text message, as well as doing it online. I just see that as being, I know advertisers that are doing it now that absolutely love it, and partners that are selling it now that are like, that is an additional 6 figures for us. That is an additional $100,000 in revenue for tiny, tiny, tiny markets, just with that portion of it. So I'm really excited about that too. Yeah.
Not only are the products and services that you're working with stations on, but also there's a lot of value in the data that they get. I've had conversations recently with Todd Handy, very familiar to the LMA audience, about zero and first party data. The first party data, I think we mostly understand. It's when somebody opts in and you get that data from them, they give it to you. But tell us, you've told me that there's a lot of value in the zero party data that accompanies these programs.
Absolutely. When you're voting and you have to register in order to vote for it to count. So you're first capturing email address, capturing an opt-in we talked about, but also first and last name. You can ask gender, you can ask zip code. Zip code is great. But not only that, with a best of, when someone votes, you learn what businesses they care about. You can segment them by interest category. That's zero party data. That's information that you want, right? And not only that, but you can ask questions on a registration form. We see less of the lead gen questions on a citywide, like best of ballot, and more so on some of our more like niche, one advertiser. But oh man, think of the possibilities with promotions when you start to say things like, are you a homeowner? How old are your windows? When are you wanting to replace that cracked driveway? And and here's the kicker, right? Would you like a free estimate? Would you like to schedule it? And that's an opt-in. And then you can immediately call on those folks. As an advertiser, you can call on them immediately. Yeah.
You and I have talked about measuring this via lifetime value of a customer. And if you're working with businesses and they see that the lifetime value of one new customer is $1,500 a year, you can see how this will pay for itself rather quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been trying to teach our sellers. I do a lot of sales training and trying to turn around from selling, what your reach is to selling lifetime value of a customer and lead gen and the difference of that. And so that gets really exciting when you start to see their kind of eyes light up and they say, yeah, I did talk to my advertiser and he said the lifetime value was $1,500. And then we talk about, well, how many leads do we need to send to him for him to convert? And then you can start to say a contest, a promotion will be successful even if it has 100 people that enter it, and with a 50% opt-in rate for the customer, because 50 people in his sales pipeline could end up being 15 customers at $1,500 per customer. Now we're talking about an ROI for him. And so some people might say, oh, 100 entrants is not that much when we talk about like a contest or a sweepstakes. And I say, how do you know? How do you know it's not that much? Because that could be the difference between him making his quarterly, budget goal. And it could also mean the difference between you making your quarterly budget goal, salesperson, if you were to sell him this. So it actually is just kind of pivoting the way we think about what is a measurement of success. Is it that you were on at 6:15 p.m. during the nightly newscast, or is it that you were able to reach these people via email or digital or social, and maybe a promotion that ran on air or through CTV or OTT, and it drove 100 leads for this customer.
What's a
Important. Yeah.
It's a mindset shift from impressions and clicks and views to results.
It is.
Results.
Yes. Exactly, selling results. And that is more so when you're selling like a sweepstakes or a quiz as part of a branded content campaign. However, when we're talking about best of programs for broadcast, I mean, it's click city, babe. Like, I mean,
Yes.
that's the great thing about best of is that you've got all these different advertisers, all these different local business owners and prominent people in the market, like who's the best city councilor and who's the best teacher. Like it can be people too. And so you've got your entire community rallied around this point in time. And if you are able to find your personality and your brand, there is no reason why you cannot do this as a broadcast affiliate or as a radio market. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to. Others are already doing it, and they're having really great success with it. You can too.
It's sort of, forgive the pun, the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it is. It's just like Lizzie McGuire or Hannah Montana. Hannah Montana. It's just like Hannah Montana said. It's the best of both worlds. Only my younger millennials will get that one. But
Right. I'm vaguely familiar, but as a Gen Xer, probably a little past my time.
right.
So let's say that I head up the audience development at a station, and I'm interested in this. We've talked about some interesting best of possibilities: college football, high school football, best shrimp and grits. But if you were advising a TV station from anywhere USA, what would be the 3 best of ballots you'd pull out of your back pocket?
First one I would say is your general best of all things. And then you don't have to have 400 different categories, even if the local print affiliate person is doing 400 categories. You don't have to. You can have your own. You can have 50 categories in a best of that's a general kind of everything best of, viewer's choice award, if you will. That's a good idea. A lot of people use viewer's choice instead of reader's choice. I like that. And it's just about the right categories that make sense for your personality. But another one is family favorites. That's a good one to reach if you have a tent pole or a vertical that is families. If that's important in your market, then a family favorites ballot is a great one. We already talked about high school sports. That's another wonderful one for broadcast. You can do a really good job with that. You should be doing that too. Dining is another one. It could be just dining. It doesn't have to be, home services. It could just be focused on that. Another thing that people do that I've seen in broadcast is they do a best of summer. So it's everything that's happening just in the summertime. If you have regional attractions, entertainment, dining, family favorites, sports, things that happen just in the summer months, that could be another one that could be really that I have seen people do as well.
We've talked about this or alluded to it, but I think it's just striking me now that as stations do these best of campaigns, not only are they getting revenue from that campaign, but they're probably getting introduced, like you said, to those new customers that
Yes.
they can develop relationships because any one station doesn't have a 100% monopoly on all the businesses and all the potential customers everywhere. This is a great way to get introduced.
We wish we did, but we don't. But this is a way for you to extend that relationship past having a best of program. It kind of is a jumping off point, or a point where you welcome people that maybe have churned, have left back into the fold. I've seen a lot of that happen as well. Is that they used to be an advertiser with us. They decided for whatever reason to not advertise with us anymore on air. They came back from this. They saw that, we built a brand around this best of product, and they want to be part of that brand, and they want to be part of the station beyond that. You can incorporate your branding as well. If you're thinking about if you're Channel 4, we had a partner that was Channel 4, and it was vote for the best instead of FOR. It was the number 4 because they're Channel 4. So another version of 4 is our radio affiliate, Zimmer. They're down in Southwest Missouri. I say Missouri. You can say Missouri if you're in St. Louis, and Missouri when you're down south. But they call it Best of the 4 states, and because they cover Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. So that's so they've taken a regional approach, and not just in Missouri, but also in the other 3 states that border where they're located, which is Joplin, Missouri. So it's way down in that corner.
Right, it's just up the road from me, along I-44, Joplin, Springfield, and then you're in St. Louis before you know it.
There you go. Yeah. After a few hours, yeah.
After a few hours, easy drive. A final question for you. It's just let's talk about broad misconceptions in the broadcast industry because I feel like having worked in broadcast myself for such a long time that we sometimes can be prisoner to the way it's always been done and not stepping outside of the box. What are some misconceptions in your viewpoint that are holding broadcast stations back?
Yeah, I think it is the mindset that a best of program is someone else's idea or product, and that they own it, and that there's no way that we could do that because that's just something that the newspaper's done for 25 years. So we couldn't possibly do that. But that's not the case. You own in broadcast, you own attention, you own trust, hopefully. I'm just kidding. You own daily reach. And it might be that your newspapers aren't a daily newspaper anymore. They might be weekly, they might be twice weekly, 3 times a week. But you're daily, you are. And best of programs are really structured in a way to monetize the influence that you have and the audience that you have and engage that audience. Love that. Love the engagement and strengthen those advertiser relationships with a program. If you're not running one or you're saying to yourself, it's someone else's deal, it's not our deal, we can't play in that space, that's theirs. That's like saying we can't sell a digital ad because the newspaper has a website too. Right? Like, that doesn't make
So limiting. Yeah.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you would never say that. Your digital director would fire you if you said that. Right? Like, you wouldn't be working for them. So if you're not running a best of program or you've thought to yourself that's someone else's product, we can't do that. You're leaving revenue on the table, but not just revenue. We talked about you're leaving data, you're leaving audience engagement and traffic on the table as well. And you're leaving relationships with advertisers, a strengthening and a deepening of relationships with them on the table as well. Yeah.
That's a lot to think about. If the station watches this, if they listen to this and they're interested, where can they find you, Julie Foley?
They can find me at my email address. I'm on LinkedIn. No, they can find me my email address, jfoley@uplandsoftware.com. Another great place to start looking, that doesn't involve having to reach out would be just to go to lab.secondstreet.com. And there are case studies. That WMBF case study, that Myrtle Beach case study is on there. We also have more that I can send you if you want more at KRXM TV. That's a Nexstar affiliate. They have one person that's selling this at the moment. We're hoping that they'll have more, but they're already doing $90,000 in revenue with that one program that they do. WXXV, they do this one as well. This is in Biloxi. This is a $60,000 program for them. They just started doing it because the newspaper decided they weren't going to really focus on their best of anymore. And WXXV was like,
Swoop.
yep.
Yep.
They said that. They said that when I met with them. They were like, we saw that they weren't doing much, and we decided you were just going to come in. And I'm like, that's good for you. And I mentioned Katie's Kentucky WKDZ. I mean, I can't say enough good things about them and the revenue they've grown. And WCLU radio, Zimmer radio, Federated radio. I mean, there's radio and there's television. There's so many, too many to mention. But the lab is a good place to start.
Good place to start. And I'll make sure, Julie, to add those links to the YouTube description, to the podcast show notes. And if anybody has comments or questions, I'll make sure that they get to Julie along the way, and I'll include her email address so that you can reach out yourself. Anything that I failed to ask? Anything you want to add?
No, please, I want you to do it. If you've been thinking about it, please reach out because I would love to help. My job is to train, to give you best practices, to help you be successful, to answer any questions that you might have. So that's my only thing I want to leave with is if you're thinking about it, call me because I am ready to get you to run through a brick wall and like go for it because it's going to be great for you if you do.
Yes, I feel the energy, the excitement, and absolutely your font of knowledge when it comes to this. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And for Keep It Local and Local Media Association, I'm Ryan. For Julie, we will talk to you later. Local Media Association offers a variety of advertising opportunities for you to market your product and or service to the vast local media industry. Our membership is comprised of more than 3,000 local media companies of every size and medium. We have a variety of ways to get you in front of key decision makers within the industry. For example, the Keep It Local podcast sponsorship package. Keep It Local is a trusted local media podcast reaching engaged listeners who care about community, business, and local impact. Hosted by me, my name is Ryan Welton, for Local Media Association. Keep It Local is a podcast about smart ideas, sustainable innovation, and the people doing the real work to keep local journalism thriving. Whether you're a publisher, an editor, ad director, or a community advocate, this show is for you. And on the local media website, we have a number of different packages that will fit your needs. I'll put a link in the description below, and I thank you for listening and watching Keep It Local.